We are in the week before Easter. Sunday is Easter Sunday. And I want to take a little bit of time today to talk about resurrection, rebirth, and sacrifice. Dr. Ernest Holmes says the resurrection is the death of the belief that we are separate from God, for death is to the illusion alone and not to reality. God cannot die. What happened was that man awoke to life. The awakening must be on the part of each of us, since God already is life. That's from the Science of Mind text. And from the glossary of the Science of Mind text, we read the definition of resurrection. Rising from a belief in death, a restoring or a renewal. We recognize that life is an unfoldment and must necessarily accumulate in the victory over death. Jesus made it plain that we should do even greater things. He taught us that the kingdom of heaven is not reached through the great way of death, but by overcoming our limited beliefs while here, by recognizing the Father within, or recognizing that Christ consciousness. So resurrection is the belief of life triumphing over death. As I was doing a little bit of research on this topic, I found a couple of websites on the internet suggesting that instead of calling Sunday Easter Sunday, that it should be called Resurrection Sunday. I don't know if this has anything to do with Easter actually being named after a pagan god, and some people still finding that difficult to handle, or what. But whatever you call it, we are going to look at resurrection and rebirth today. And I thought that it also went together quite well with Holloway's writings on sacrifice, because he had an interesting way of looking at sacrifice in his book, Working with the Law, and the law of sacrifice being one of the laws. And I had never quite thought of it in the terms that he did, because he says that in order for something to show up, something has to be sacrificed. And I would like to think that in order for something great to show up, something less great needs to be sacrificed. In a baseball game, hitters hit sacrifice flies and sacrifice bunts in order for a run to be scored. So one batter is getting an out while another batter's run scores, and the team scores. And the team has a better chance of winning the game. So one batter's sacrifice is for the greater good of the team. So what are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to let go of in order for something greater to show up? I have a little story to share with you. There was once a young man that as a child always had a fear that there was someone under his bed at night. And this fear carried on to him as an adult. And he went to a psychiatrist and told him what the problem was. That every time he went to bed, he thought somebody was under it. And he said, "I'm scared. And then I think I'm going crazy." And the psychiatrist looks at him and says, "Well, just put yourself in my hands for the next year. Come and talk to me 3 times a week, and we should be able to rid you of these fears." And the young man looks at him and says, "Well, how much do you charge?" And the psychiatrist says, $150 a visit. And the young man says, "I'll sleep on it." He had to think about $150 a visit times 3 times 52. 6 months later, the doctor ran into the man on the street, and he says, "Why didn't you come to see me about your fears?" And the little guy looks at him and says, "Well, it was the $150 a visit times 3 times a week for a year, are $23,400. And he said, you know, a bartender cured me for $10. And I was so happy to save that much money, I just went ahead and bought a new pickup truck. So is that so? Said the psychiatrist. And how, may I ask, did the bartender cure your fear? The young man shared. He told me to cut the legs off the bed. There ain't nobody under my bed now. Think about it. This young man was able to sacrifice the legs of his bed for a better way to sleep, to get rid of his fear. This is a little funny, it's a little joke, but think about it. What are we hanging on to that we need to let go of and release and sacrifice to allow something greater to come into our lives? I think sacrifice is a word that's gotten a bad rap because we've been told through more traditional religion that we have to give up all the good stuff and sacrifice all the good stuff to achieve our later rewards in heaven. I think it's the only word that may be knocked around more than sacrifice is maybe forgiveness, because too many times people think that to forgive someone, they make themselves a victim, or they make themselves less than someone else, or by giving up what they're hanging on to, that they make someone else right. And that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness, to me, is a major part of sacrifice. Because when I sacrifice what I have been holding on to by forgiving someone else, I have allowed that to be released to allow greater peace and greater understanding and just all sorts of greater things to come into my life. And if you're interested in doing some sacrificing through forgiveness work, remember that I'm doing my workshop this Saturday, starting at 11 o'clock Eastern time, and then it would be whatever your time zone is from there. And I would love to see all of you there, because many people have sacrificed old beliefs and had really great stuff show up in their life just by being willing to do the 3-hour forgiveness workshop and then continuing to work with it later. Some of the best things that some of the good work people have done is forgiving old supervisors, forgiving old partners, and just letting go of what is stuck in there to allow something good to show up. And that's what sacrifice is. That's what rebirth is. We talk about the resurrection of Jesus. And what we need to remember is that each one of us has the ability to resurrect or be reborn at any time or any place. That when we can do something to move us beyond where we're stuck, we allow ourselves to embody something new, to embody a new way of looking at things. This is the spring. This is the spring of the year. I don't think Gerd's on the line. In his area, it's the fall of the year. But for those of us in the Western Hemisphere, it is the spring of the year. And I can look out my window right now and see daffodils blooming. I can see the grass growing green. We actually had to mow it yesterday. You know, it is that time of the year when we see baby animals. We see all signs of new birth, of a new beginning. And we have the ability to create our own new beginnings at any time by letting go of whatever, as I've said before, whatever has us stuck. We need to do what it takes to let it go. And one of the things that Hollowell talked about was the difference between the sacrifice of Jesus dying on the cross and the sacrifice or the choice Judas made for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus died. but he came back to join us. That was his resurrection. But Judas had to live with his choice, had to live with being, with the disgrace and being cast aside and being cast out by his friends that he had been with. And we all, many of us have had an opportunity at some point in our life to do something that if we had made a different choice, our whole life might be different. Hollowell also talks about a couple of friends who had gone to a party, and they got in an argument on the way home. And when they got to their home, one of them was so angry, he pulled out a gun and shot and killed his friend. Not something he intended to do, but in that moment, he sacrificed his belief in life to cause the death of someone else. Hopefully, none of us have had to make that choice. None of us have been in a position where we make that bad of choices. But look, I want you to take a moment to look into your life. In fact, we're going to do a meditation right now. So I want you to just take a moment and take a deep breath. And breathe in and breathe out. And if you want to, close your eyes. And just take a moment to go through your mind, to go through your history. And see if there's something there that you're ready to let go of. That you're ready to open that space to allow something even better to show up. To allow yourself to be reborn or resurrected. As the phoenix rose from its ashes. Is there something within you that needs to be burned so the ashes can be there for the phoenix to rise again? I want you to visualize a huge bonfire in the middle of a safe place for a bonfire. And when you determine what it is you're ready to let go of, I want you to take your burden and drop it in the fire. Just let it go. Just see it literally becoming ashes and gas and nothing but truly the nothingness from which it came. And then I want you to take another deep breath and allow yourself to fill that space within yourself that you removed, whatever it was you removed, and just fill that space with love, life, joy, peace, wisdom, and abundance. And just breathe in the joy of life as it goes through every fiber of your being. And now I want you to see the bonfire becoming a pile of ash. And visualize yourself rising out of that ash like a phoenix being reborn. Because this is your moment of rebirth and resurrection. And when you're ready, open your eyes and return to this moment.